decided to hit up an old haunt today. We haven't been here in a while. We have returned. Well, hello Lionhearts. We are back in Los Angeles, back at Lake Hollywood Park. And I thought, you know, we're only in town for a few days because we're gonna head out and go see our family back in Ohio again. And I thought, you know, what would be a fun day for vlogging today? Well, last night, for the very first time ever, I watched It's a Wonderful Life, the Frank Capra picture starring Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed, and I loved it. So today, we're gonna do a vlog on It's a Wonderful Life. Days with Jordan the Lion begins now. How are you today, Jaw? We'll give Jaw a little bit of time to play today, and then I want to head out to Forest Lawn, Glendale again. I've actually never been to Jimmy Stewart's grave, so I thought, let's go out and visit Jimmy Stewart. Or as we now know him, Mr. George Bailey of Bedford Falls. And sadly, even though it was only in 1946 that this movie came out, most all of the filming locations are all gone now. What is he doing? That's not playing. Now, like I said, I had never seen the movie until yesterday. I had seen maybe a few snippets here and there, but I was glad I watched it because I have been a huge fan of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation for most of my life, and now I started to see a lot of the kind of like throwbacks or a lot of the little nods to it in Christmas Vacation to It's a Wonderful Life. The Knoll post, every time that thing shakes, and when he's kind of flipping out in the living room, the way they kind of film that and the way they zero in on the actors is pretty much the same way they do it in Christmas Vacation, so it was kind of cool to see that for me. And also, it was just a great movie with a really poignant message for this time of year, so I thought that'd be a perfect vlog for today. Now, I don't know exactly where he's buried out here. I just know a landmark that I'm looking for. I saw a picture online of something on top of the hill, so I'm looking for that. Well, this is a first. I never anticipated running into this problem, but they actually have the hill that he's buried on closed off right now because they had some sort of electrical issue. They've closed off all the entryways to get onto the hill, the pathway on top of it, and when I just stopped, one of the security guards said, yeah, they don't know when it'll be cleared up. Might be days, so right up here. We'll have to come back another day, but right up there is where George Bailey is buried. So I guess instead what we'll do is we will go over to the Martini house, Martini's place. That's still around. Well, that's really unfortunate. I didn't anticipate running into that problem. Never in a million years, but the reason I wanted to come over here is obviously, I mean, this is Jimmy Stewart. He's who brought this lovable character to life, and you know, especially this time of the season, I think a lot of people reflect on their life. It's a new year coming up, holidays, people have passed on, they're thinking about their friends and family and decisions they've made, and this movie really kind of speaks to that. You see George Bailey, this dreamer who has his whole life planned out ahead of him. He knows exactly what he wants to do, and you know, then life happens. Various things happen in his life where it diverts him from getting to travel the world and getting to see the world, and he makes changes and does things instead of acting selfishly for what he thinks would be for the greater good. And you know, eventually he runs into the situation where he feels like he would just be better off being dead. And you know, I bring it up because it's weird. I notice more people than ever these days, when their birthday comes up, they do like a donation to a suicide prevention line, and they always say this is the time of the year that happens, and that's kind of what this movie speaks to. So let's head out to the Martini house. Sorry to get your hopes up, guys. We'll swing by here on the way back and see if maybe it's been opened up by then. I kind of doubt it, but it's worth a shot, you know. You look at the festive houses in this neighborhood and you'd actually feel like you are in Bailey Park. So one of the reasons that George Bailey is such a hero in this movie is because his father has always run like a bank that lends to the local folks and made people that probably in most cases wouldn't be able to get a loan and get a home for their families. He and his family made that possible, and so once his father passes away, he continues in that, and one of the families that he helps to get their first home that they actually own and not rent is his pal Martini, who owns the bar, where George has two kind of monumental experiences. One of them in the bar is when he decides he wants to kill himself. He thinks that he's no good to anyone and better off, or he's worth more to his family dead than alive, and he goes and has a last drink there, and his daughter's teacher that he had kind of went crazy on over the phone, her husband is in that bar and punches George in the face and gives him the bloody corner of his mouth. But we're actually going to head over now to the Martini's house that he helps them to finance. Now, one of the things that Clarence, the angel who's there to help save George, kind of illustrates to him is that if he weren't around, it would no longer be Bedford Falls, it would be Pottersville, because Mr. Potter, the evil rich man of the town, would have turned it into nothing but bars and dancing girl halls and barrel houses. So George never gets to have his moment traveling the world and conquering and building skyscrapers and building things like he has planned. He ends up marrying Mary, played by Donna Reed, and even when they are supposed to go off on a trip, he ends up foregoing that trip and the money that he saved for it to help out the townspeople of Bedford Falls. Now, basically, the turmoil in this movie begins when the money is supposed to be deposited, and it actually gets kind of mixed up in the newspaper that Mr. Potter grabs. And so Mr. Potter actually has their $8,000, and George is going crazy trying to find out what happened to the $8,000, because it looks like they are doing something corrupt at the bank. And so that's kind of why he's deciding to kill himself. But of course, as any great Christmas movie, we do get a happy ending. Now, the second time we see the Martini's bar, it's actually called Nick's, and that's when George is in the phase where he was no longer born, and Clarence takes him there, and he sees what ends up happening to Mr. Gower, that he was in jail for poisoning a kid. Yeah, pretty sad life without George Bailey. Now here's the house, one of the few remaining filming locations left for the great It's a Wonderful Life, but this is where George and Mary come for the celebration when the Martinis move into their new house, and they give them the bottle of champagne at the doorstep.
Mr. and Mrs. Martini, welcome home.
All of their friends are kind of crowded around and everything.
Sam Wainwright.
This is it. This is all that's left. Can you believe it?
Who cares? Bread, that this house may never know hunger.
God, what a great movie. But don't worry, like I said, all's well that ends well for George Bailey. Well, luckily for us, George gets a new lease on life, and despite what the consequences of losing the $8,000 are, he decides he wants to live. And he comes back joyful and celebratory for the Christmas season, wants to see his family, and he actually realizes all the great things that have happened because of him. His brother didn't die in the water when he was a kid, and the family business, the town didn't become Pottersville. So as he's there to accept his fate, all of the people that he'd loaned money to over the years come and start donating barrels of money to him, and they save him. Happy ending. It's a wonderful life. And apparently there really was a Bedford Falls, or a town that Frank Capra based this movie off of. It was Seneca Falls, New York. And we also see that with no George Bailey, the Martini's house would become a graveyard. Literally. We're gonna make a little stop and try and kill some time before we go back to Forest Lawn. Well, I haven't been here in a long time, but I was passing by it, and this plaza in particular has a pretty heavily, or at least it used to, Filipino influence. So I'm hoping they still have the Jollibee here. Well, it used to be over here. Awesome, it's still here. I want to get a halo halo. Ah, there it is. Well, we're giving it one more try over here at Forest Lawn. Well, unfortunately, we have no luck. If you look right over here, there's a blockade still up going up the hill, so we'll have to go visit Jimmy Stewart another time. I'm sorry, guys. Pretty nice decorations, though. So they actually have a do not enter sign at this entrance over there. They have a security guard in a truck right on the other side of this. And then they have that blocked off, so there's just, and he's actually buried right on this hill, so just no way up there. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and head out of here then. Well, let's try this again. I just went to the information desk and they said I could walk it. Whereas before I was told I couldn't walk it, now they told me that I can walk it. Said you can't drive up there, but you can walk it. Well, gang, after a lot of effort, we made it. We found him. Right here next to Gloria. There he is. James Maitland Stewart. That is great. George Bailey, the man that brought George Bailey, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and countless Alfred Hitchcock movies. There he is, James Stewart. Just had to include him, you know. Just had to. Without Jimmy Stewart, I mean, It's a Wonderful Life just wouldn't be the same movie. You just need that everyday, every man that you can identify with, that you can feel his pain on his face, and Jimmy Stewart nailed it every time. James Maitland Stewart. For he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy way. I now feel like this vlog was a little bit more of a success, and we'll come back in the future and pay proper homage to Jimmy Stewart, do a little bit more about his life, but for today, just thanking him for George Bailey. And on that, I guess we can head out of here.